Please do join us for this next chat, which is about bringing the global community together to foster collaboration to solve big problems with actionable solutions. This group will review the experience of the Beyond Chatbots Hackathon, which was hosted by the Cambridge Suptech Lab and the Alliance for Innovative Regulation this past July. And they'll discuss how we can bring the resulting data products to market through various types of upcoming collaborative events. And I apologize if you can hear the siren in the background. I'm in Manhattan, so it's just part of the daily noise. But I'm pleased to introduce here who will be part of this group. We have Natalie, who I think you all have met from the lab earlier today, Abhishek Rana, also from the lab, and then Nitya Malati from AIR. So Natalie, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction. And indeed, the collaboration is the theme. We hear it repetitively over and over again. And clearly it's making a difference, or else we wouldn't all be investing our time sharing, because we see that through these collaborative efforts, we learn from each other. And it's just such a pleasure to be part of this event and these sessions with a global community of passionate and engaged minds. At the Cambridge Suptech Lab, we've seen a variety of mechanisms to facilitate such collaboration. And we could see that they're really making a difference in contributing to the steps that we all need to take in the digital transformation journey. We understand that it's discovery and iterative, and it's through putting our minds together that we can achieve great things. I'm Natalie Lenahan. I'm the technical program manager at the Cambridge Suptech Lab. My background is in designing and managing IT software development projects for the New York State Department of Financial Services. And together with Nitya and Abhishek, we will talk about a collaborative event that we worked on together this summer and share what we learned and how we can use the outcomes to help solve big world problems. Over to you, Nitya.
So hi, everyone. I'm Nitya, a program manager at the Alliance for Innovative Regulation. So my background has been that I have about 8 years of work experience in the credit underwriting profile financial services. And in terms of my academic background, it's basically finance as well as analytics.
Abhishek?
Hi, everyone. My name is Abhishek, and I'm the senior data scientist here at Cambridge Suptech Lab. So my background, basically, I've developed and worked on a wide range of machine learning models, including NLP, computer vision, anomaly detection, and simulation. And I've worked on these problems mostly in the security domain. So for the Department of Homeland Security, the Center for Criminal Investigations and Network Analysis, and the Naval Research Lab.
Great, thank you. So when I first heard of tech sprints, this whole concept of getting people together to solve problems was at the New York State Department of Financial Services when in 2021, we hosted a tech sprint for the digital regulatory reporting in the virtual currency industry. And I thought, wow, how great is this? I know tech and I know the domain and maybe I can contribute. It sounded like a really fun and exciting way to work with other minds to solve these problems. And for one reason or another, whether I just couldn't fit it in or whether I just chickened out because I didn't think I had the skills to contribute to a team, I didn't participate, but I certainly watched it from the sidelines. And then fast forward a little to me joining the lab back in May. The first assignment is to organize a hackathon. And I thought, well, okay, it sounds very similar to a tech sprint, but there are some nuances, some differences. And the important part is not so much what you call it, but what is it that you're trying to get out of it? In some instances, you might just be working on developing design concepts, whereas another vehicle might enable facilitating engineering actual prototype over a short period of time to result in functioning software. So what we did back in July is hosted such a hackathon. The solutions were meant to be open source and available to be leveraged by any interested parties. And we were looking to provide real value to financial authorities by empowering them with the capability to extract actionable insights from consumer complaint data. We worked together to collect data for the event from 7 financial authorities who shared 9 data sets. This was anonymized and or synthesized complaint and schemas. Again, in the spirit of collaboration, when we reached out to get this data, we were amazed and grateful for the significant contributions, notably from SBS Peru and BCB Brazil, who provided literally gigabytes of data for us to work with. So just as any engineer and data scientist knows, all Suptech solutions are all about the data. So we're very excited to get that data. The event convened 40 people from 9 countries with various backgrounds and expertise. And as we got closer to the event, as I'm sure many event coordinators know, you're still counting at the last minute who's the speaker and who's on what team. And we noticed that one of the teams was quite thin, and that's when Nitya put on her second hat, not just as somebody who helped us plan and coordinate this event, but also as a participant. SBS also contributed significant resources by providing floating experts, panel speaker, judges. And once again, we just saw how the global community of experts and financial authorities came together to move the needle to augment consumer protection. On the final day of the event, the hackers presented their teams, their methodologies, and their solutions. And we're very lucky to have Nitya with us today, who can share her perspective and her experience as a participant.
Thanks, Natalie. So at AIR, our team is predominantly involved in planning and execution of tech sprints and hackathon. However, at the Chatbot Hackathon, I was one of the participants. So I would maybe just talk a bit about my experience from both, planning as well as participation point of view. So as organizers of a tech sprint or a hackathon, the focus is usually on the overall execution of the sprint. So, and all the learnings that we get from execution of a sprint, so be it what went well or what are the challenges or what are the pain points, or all from an organizer point of view. But when I was a participant in the hackathon, so I could get like an in-depth understanding of the same aspects from a participant point of view. So overall, it just gave me a very holistic picture also throughout the life cycle of the tech sprint or a hackathon, and it was very beneficial for me. So there were 3 significant learnings from this experience as a participant, which I believe will ensure a very smooth process for participants throughout the hackathon. So the first one was like having a communication channel, which sort of helps that initial communication among the team members, because tech sprints are very time-bound activities. So basically you need to come up with a solution maybe in a week or 10 days time usually. So if you have like a communication channel where you immediately connect with your team members, that sort of gives you like a kickstart in terms of the work that you would be doing. And the second thing was also always to have an option of any ramp up or any scale up of technology or platform requirements at any point in time, because requirements might change during the tech sprint. And the last one was also always having prompt support from experts and the core team, because again, if you have that kind of communication going, it sort of creates and maintains that momentum throughout the tech sprint. So these were like the 3 learnings that I could get from this experience. And moving on to the actual chatbot, the hackathon, I just talk about the solution that we proposed. So we were Team Data Alchemists, and we came up with a risk monitoring mechanism that is basically aimed to help financial regulators detect risky behaviors within financial institutions. So what we did was the initial model development was done using CFPB dataset that was provided to us. So we applied topic modeling to this dataset, and then we actually came up with broader themes and labels for these narratives. So that model can be again reused for other datasets as well. And this we followed up by using a publicly available violation tracker specific for CFPB data. And then we listed out top 10 US-based financial institutions, which have the highest number of complaints registered in the system. So what we did was we connected this to a trustworthiness factor. So for instance, if you have a bank or an institution which has very high number of complaints and also very significant amount of penalty amount that they need to pay out. So you can sort of infer that this financial institution is maybe less trustworthy compared to some of its other counterparts. So that was the inference that we came up with. And finally, we used the original CFPB data set. We've also done ran a clustering algorithm on it. And then that sort of helped us sort of cluster these financial institutions based on the topics. And we picked up topics which are common within each of these clusters. So what happened was basically we could sort of come up with a correlation between a financial institution's trustworthiness and also its corresponding complaints themes which are prevalent for that financial institution. So this was one of our outputs from the exercise that we have done. And also another thing we did was we also tested this particular model with SBS Peru dataset. So this was a Spanish dataset, Spanish language dataset. So we converted it to English, and then we basically tested the model to see if this can also help with datasets from other languages. So this was something that we worked on in terms of our solution. And I think now I will turn it over to Abhishek, who will speak about bringing data products like this into production.
Thanks, Nitya. That was very interesting, and you highlight a very good point, which is that hackathons are really a great way to get domain experts and tech people together and get to a proof of concept stage for a solution, which otherwise might take a lot of documentation or time. Obviously, once you reach proof of concept, naturally you'd go into prototyping and then later on into production. So at least from a machine learning perspective, and your model was BERT-based, I believe, right? The main key points I would make is before prototyping or going into production, the first consideration is, of course, is the model generalizable? And by that, I mean, does it work across different data sets, especially the data sets that it was not trained on? If it's not, is there data available to retrain or fine-tune these models for the particular use case? And what is the cost of doing that, right? So there'll be costs in terms of GPU and later on also in costs of storage. And it's also important to note that, anything that goes into production is not going to be static because the data is going to change. So continuously as the data and the distribution of the data changes, you're going to have to retrain the models, have testing and validation processes in place to ensure that there's no bias or the outputs match the outcomes that you're looking for. And I think the final point I would make is, before anything goes into prototype or production, we really need to focus on the value add, especially with subtext solutions that are automated, right? What value is it actually adding? If you're replacing manual processes or you're creating an engine that complements manual processes, what is the extra value that it's going to add? And what are the outcomes and decisions that can come from that can provide better customer service?
Those are excellent points, Abhishek. Thank you so much for that insight. I want to circle back to something Nitya said about a takeaway about making sure that the platforms and the technology underlying and supporting these events are properly configured and sized for the volume of data. So what do you think some of the things we can do? What are some actual things that we can do with that takeaway to facilitate more reliable and properly sized platform for such events? Abhishek, I believe that you've been working on an endeavor within the lab that would facilitate such a platform. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's really data dependent, and it's also model dependent, right? So one of the two considerations we always make is if you have, so we have open code and open data, where we have open data repositories and code repositories that help solve certain subtext problems. And we also have the data gymnasium which accesses, the code and the data from it, and also allows for the development of new models, implementation, testing. The data can be anonymized so that underlying, private data is protected. But the main thing when you go into these sort of things and you try to create an open resource that everyone can use is you're never going to actually be able to pin down, what advanced model they're going to use. What is the computational cost for that? What are the requirements? So these sort of costs sometimes are going to be borne out by the user themselves, and maybe they just want the data, and that's okay. and they want to externalize the use of GPUs and database storages to carry out, whatever analysis they want to do. Or you can build it in internally, but you will have to, create some restrictions around the sort of complexity of the models that are going to be implemented. So to create a holistic platform like the Gymnasium, where you have access to open code, open data, people can come in, implement new models, whether they be notebooks, make sure they integrate with the data. All the pre-processing step is a real challenge in terms of not only hardware, but logistics and planning.
Indeed. Very good. Very interesting. Nitya, back over to you. We talked about how there's different flavors of collaborative events, and I know that we have another one coming up very soon on the heels of this one. On the lab side, I know we've got a few scheduled or planned for next year pertaining to algorithmic bias, gender and financial data. And we're also going to get to partner again with the lab and AIR work together on a generative AI event. We hope everyone in the audience will be able to join us. It's the session immediately following this one. Can you give us a little sneak preview of what to expect there?
Yeah, so AIR is launching the next Gen AI program. So it's basically, again, generative AI focused. So we have multiple components in this program. So we have the tech showcase component, we have shared learning, as well as a call for papers component, which we'll be talking about in the next session. For me personally, I think when we were working in the chatbot hackathon, we realized that generative AI-based LLM models can really help out with certain instances. For example, in our case, the SBS Peru data. So generative AI can be used for multilingual support, so for helps with translation, and also because if you're using an LLM model and financial authorities are concerned about data privacy, so you can use data anonymization. That is one of the use cases for generative AI. So this is what we were thinking at that point in time. So similarly, there is a huge potential in terms of several other use cases which can be addressed through generative AI. And that is what we are trying to showcase these solutions through the tech showcase component in the AIRS program. So you'll hear a lot more about it in the next session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nitya. I hope everyone can join. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it, especially as we'll be working together on it. Abhishek, thank you so much for your time and your input. And now back over to Simone.